At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
It is a new day for 911 professionals. They have gone from the most important person you will never see to the most vital piece of public safety. Truth be told, they always have been. The curtain has been pulled back, and they are sharing their stories. Welcome to Imagine Listening. Your Worst Day is Our Everyday by Ricardo Martinez II, and narrated by myself, Ricardo Martinez II, and distributed by Beacon Audio Books. Copyright 2023. That's right, everyone. Finally, I can let everyone know the rumors are true. Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday is now available as an audiobook on Audible, and it's a long time coming. Very excited. Not a lot of authors get the opportunity to voice their own book, but I had the honor and privilege to do so. So thank you to Beacon Audio Books, as well as my publisher, Titled Town Publishing, for everything, but especially all of you for making the I Am 911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, what it is today. I appreciate you all more than you know. So go ahead, head out, stream it, download it, however you consume your audiobooks. Imagine Listening is now available. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether you be on Circle, Patreon, or Facebook. Thank you so much, but also all of you who are here watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you and your support and everything that you do and your trust in me in sharing your stories. I do not take it lightly. It is truly an honor, and I am humbled and just blessed to be able to do all of this with all of you. So thank you so very much. And there is, as always, a lot going on. It's May 28th, 2024 right now. May has just flown by. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be the end of June. That's how many episodes I have. And I've got more that are going to be coming up. So I'm just excited for all of these episodes to go out, for you to hear these powerful stories from 911. And yeah, I'm excited. There's so much to come. So make sure to look out for all of it. And I'm excited for my guest today, and her name is Carlynn, and she is an engagement strategist with FirstWatch. Hello.
Hi, Ricardo. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I am excited to have you on. How are you doing? It's been since, what was it, April when we saw each other at the Navigator conference?
Yep, I couldn't be better. Things are great.
All
How about
right.
with you? You doing all right?
So since the time that we saw each other, the week before, I was in North Carolina, and it basically started a back to back to back to back to back travel schedule. This first week back is I was gone for basically 2 months traveling. I think I was at home for maybe 3 days in between some of those stints. One of those, I was back for only a day and a half, and I had to fly out.
Wow, that is a lot. Well, welcome back. Welcome home.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And like I said, I'm excited to have you on and hear about you because you have about 36 years total in public safety, which is amazing. You've got about 11 years in dispatch. You also had some time as a center manager, 17 years with the IAAD, and now about 7 years working for FirstWatch. And I can't wait to learn more about you. So, how did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
Well, I had just graduated from the University of Utah with a degree in speech pathology and audiology. So the next step is obviously become a dispatcher, right?
Right, yes.
No, that's not quite how it worked. So I had just graduated. My husband was a reserve police officer, and he said, "Hey, this local police department is hiring dispatchers. You should go try." So I thought, "Oh, what the heck? Why not?" So I tried it and absolutely loved it from day one.
So okay, so you get in there. Was there a sit along or anything that you did, or did you just kind of have some of that experience from listening to, I guess, to the radio, maybe even, with your husband around and stuff and listening to some of those things? Um, what else did you get to do or did you just kind of jump in and you were thrown into the lion's den?
Exactly. That is exactly what I did. I just jumped in, and from there, it was in my blood. I loved it, and the rest is history, as they say.
Was there anything that, that surprised you when you first got in there? Was there any, I guess even, moments of being overwhelmed, thinking, "Can I do this? Like, is this possible?"
Yeah, I think that's typical. I remember the one thing, and this is going to be kind of funny, but the one thing that really overwhelmed me was I had to pass a typing test. And I can type all day long until I'm testing. I don't know if they even do type tests now, but it terrified me. And luckily, I was able to pass it. Um, and then the thing that surprised me, I guess, was all of the adrenaline pumping. You know what to do. You're in there, you're in the moment doing it. But in between those times when it was really boring and staying alert and those kinds of things.
Oh, yes. No, I get it, and, well, so here's a question. The center that you were working at, was it a one-seater or, just you for however long, whether it be 8 hours, 12 hours, or were you already going in and, working with the team?
So for training, obviously, I was paired with a trainer.
Mhm.
But other than that, occasionally there were two of us, but typically it was a very small agency, and typically it was one person at a time.
So, okay, let's back up a little bit because now I'm curious, okay? Because throughout all of the years that I've been doing this, everyone has a different, let's just say right off the bat, the hiring process. What was your hiring process? Now you had the typing test, right? And which there are some places that do still have it. Even in the early 2000s when I was applying for two different agencies in Michigan, I'll just say this really quick. The typing test that they had there was about 5 paragraphs, I believe, 5 or 6 paragraphs. The minimum that you needed to type, I believe, was, if I remember correctly, it was 25 words per minute, okay? And but you could only get 3 mistakes. And I was thinking I was all awesome and stuff because I could type really fast, and I'm going through it, and one mistake. And I'm thinking, okay, no, I still got, I can still do this. I'm still, very confident, right? And I continue typing, and just out of habit, when you're typing and you've done something wrong or spelled something wrong, whatever, you go to backspace. So I went to backspace, and they counted that as the
Oh
second
no.
mistake. Yes, and they didn't tell us this, so I'm freaking out. However, I just went for the, tried and true method of hunt and peck, and I passed it with, I would say, flying colors, but I was very scared that I wasn't going to pass it.
That is so funny.
So other than the typing test, what else was there that was part of the hiring process for you?
Okay, you are making me go way back, and I don't know that I can remember.
Oh,
um,
well, even to generalize, so the typing test, and maybe, a panel interview, or interview with maybe just the director, or, the interview process.
dude, you're killing me.
Oh,
Um,
that's hilarious.
I think
Yes.
I think I remember like listening to a recording and having to transcribe it or something. I'm sure there was an interview board, but
And then
yeah.
after that, you're just like, they just throw you in, and, um yeah, so that same center that had the typing test, they had something similar where they had about 30 of us in this huge room. The acoustics were horrible, and so was the intercom system, and, they had us listen to radio traffic as well. We had to write down exactly what we thought dispatch was talking to the officer about, and they narrowed it down to about 10. And then the 10 of us went to, like, the typing test, interview, and all this other stuff that they had. But for yourself, you end up getting in there, and what is now the training like? Are there different phases, or are you just kind of sitting with someone, listening, and practicing from there? Or do they throw you on phones like I did with my very first center, my first night in dispatch? I'm already on phones.
So I remember there was a ton of HR paperwork for the first few days.
Mhm.
And following that, they paired me up with a trainer, and it was kind of just a checklist.
Mhm.
Okay, if this happens, you do this. And I would sit as she took calls, and and I don't remember, that was probably a couple weeks or something. And then I was on my own, and
Oh, man.
sink or swim, right?
Right, yes, yeah, and, a lot of people, a lot of people that I've spoken to, it has been like that, where it is like a sink or swim type thing, and, I think in a lot of places, it's still kind of like that now, to an extent, not as, as much, but to an extent, it is a little bit. I did have a trainer once who basically put it out there, and I know a lot of people have said this as well, as, "We're gonna throw you in the water, okay? You're gonna take in some water, but I'm not gonna let you drown." And that is kind of, it's really stuck with me, and a lot of people that I've heard that from as well, they've had similar training where you go in there and it's like, "Okay, it's my turn now."
Right.
Oh, man. But, as you said, you quickly ended up really loving it, was there a certain call that you took, or was it listening to the traffic, even was it the adrenaline, that adrenaline rush? What was it for you, do you think, that, it really just kind of got into your blood? Because a lot of people as well, it's just simply serving people.
Yeah, and that was a huge part of it. I don't want
Mhm.
to take the miscongeniality, world peace um,
Right.
track, but yeah, there was a certain amount of that, of just wanting to help people and help
Mhm.
them on their darkest days, and then serving the public safety community that you work with, and work to keep them safe and keep track of them. And part of it was just knowing everything that was going on. I love the nosy part of it too.
You know what's funny is that, I just got back teaching in Colorado, And one of the pieces that's part of what I do is I'm trying to get folks to feel comfortable talking about what it is that they do in dispatch, but also kind of how to sell the profession in a way. And one person actually said that. They said, if I was talking to somebody or I was trying to hire someone, maybe I would put it out there that way. And they were joking, but it kind of made sense a little bit because they were saying, you know, if you're nosy and you want to know what's going on with the people around you, come and work in dispatch.
That's funny. Yeah, I
Oh yeah.
get that. I totally get that.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious. Like the whole room was just cracking up. We're like, I mean, that could be a selling point for some people. Now you're going through all of that. You've gone through your training and now you're working by yourself. Do you feel like, especially when you started first taking calls and such, that the fact that your husband was in public safety as well, that kind of helped, whether it be with closure, healing, support, just having someone to be able to talk about some of those things that you were doing there, because now you've got someone who comes from public safety who can basically understand what you're feeling.
Yeah, that was super helpful. We didn't work for the same agency or anything like that,
Mhm.
but yeah, having somebody, excuse me, having someone that understood kind of the pressures and what you're going through and the funny times too. A lot of time there's that dark humor
Right,
and you
yeah.
kind of got to laugh about it and people think you're sick or crazy or whatever, but um, it's a way of dealing with the stress, and I think it's very effective.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, and maybe it has changed, whether it be with this program or a lot of other things that people see, or maybe more so people just feeling comfortable talking about it in general. That like you're saying, when we're talking about that dark humor, not everybody understands that. I mean, I remember some of the earlier episodes of this show. There was someone who, when X was still Twitter, uh, somebody had tweeted something out to the effect of, "I hope that you are never the dispatcher who takes my phone call because all you guys do is make fun of people."
Mm,
And I had to explain. I retweeted it and had to explain that some of those calls that we were talking about and critiquing, we weren't laughing at the people. We were joking about the incident, specifically just the incident, because we respect the people who call in. We love what we do, and but we need to have some sort of dark humor when it comes to these because of the burnout and everything else. Try to see some sort of sunlight at the end of the tunnel, because a lot of this stuff can consume you and eat you up.
I love how you said that. That just captures it perfectly. Yeah.
Thank you. It's
You're
that
welcome.
that person ended up understanding afterwards, because after I made the point, there were tons of people who also responded after that, and I thought, I can't do anything about this now. Like, person, you opened up the floodgates to this. Now tons of people are going to be explaining to you. And, it's the same thing, like, with friends and family. They would ask, "So how are things going in dispatch?" And I would say, "I mean, things have been kinda slow." And they would go, "What? What is that supposed to mean?" And I'd say, "Well, there hasn't been a lot going on, is all I'm saying." And they would say, "Well, isn't that a good thing? Because that means that people don't need help." And I would say, "No, that's a very good thing. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. But it's my job to be there to help these folks, and I wanna help people. That's why I'm saying, that's why I put it that way." And they would go, "Oh, okay, that makes more sense." And I I would say, "You gotta come from where we come from to really understand."
Yeah. So true. And if I can back up just a little bit, when
Of
we were
course.
talking about my first days in training or on my own, I can't help but reflect on how beneficial it would have been to have a protocol. Back in those days, or at this agency, we did not utilize any kind of protocol, but having a standardized set of questions to direct you what to say, when to say it, who to send, how to send,
Mhm.
those kinds of things would be so beneficial. starting out as a brand new dispatcher.
Yeah, because there's a lot, right, that goes into it, and really like that, you just simply go off of the other folks that are there, whether
Mhm.
they've been doing it right or not,
Right.
or to whatever extent, whatever case it may be on a case by case basis, you're just going off of what you're hearing. But yeah, like you're saying, that especially if so, were you and I know this was early on, so the protocol and stuff wasn't there, but eventually were you EMD, like emergency medical dispatch?
Mhm. Yeah, I left this little agency and went to another agency where we implemented emergency medical dispatch. We didn't have fire or police at the time.
Mhm.
Listen to me, I sound like I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow or whatever. But yeah, I am kind of old, but we only had EMD and it was certainly very helpful.
Well, and I'm right there with you as well because even starting out my dispatching career in 2001, we weren't EMD certified or anything like that. Like, so for any medical that came in, we would get all the pertinent information and then we would transfer it to central dispatch or what we called county radio over there. And then we would dispatch out fire rescue. But we wouldn't do any of those the medical pieces or anything. It was when I ended up moving back to Southwest Michigan and finished off my career in the county that I actually grew up in. That is when I had to take the testing and do all of that to be certified for medicals and stuff. Because before that, I didn't do anything. At least
Mhm.
medical wise, I didn't do anything like that.
Yeah, and what did you do? What did you think after you got the training? And
I thought I can't wait to try to help deliver a baby.
I know, right?
Yes. It was
That's
very, very
exciting.
yes, it was an exciting thought and everything, but also at the same time, kind of on the flip side of it, some of those medicals, I think some of the scariest medicals for me, I mean, CPR is one thing, right? Um, but it's when a parents would call in and kids were choking,
Mhm.
and you're trying to help them with the Heimlich maneuver. And, I remember one call specifically where as soon as I picked up, said what I was saying, I heard screaming, but all I could hear was and, immediately I knew what was going on. The parent is slapping the heck out of their kid's back, which, in those moments, you're doing everything that you can, but through the protocol and stuff, it says something to the effect of, don't hit them on their back because it could get lodged, even more. So I remember trying to tell mom this, and I remember her yelling at me saying, "Do you want my kid to F and choke and die?" And I'm like, "No," which is why I'm gonna tell you exactly what to do. And EMS was on their way, and we ended up getting it dislodged. It came out, and then, of course, it's like, thank you." And wow, I haven't thought about that call in a long time, actually. But that's how they come back, right? That's
Yeah,
how they come back. But for me, those were probably some of the scariest ones is ones like that.
yeah. Well, congratulations. Great
Oh,
job.
thank you. Now, do you remember any of your earlier calls?
I do. I wish I had really happy, good calls that
Mhm.
really come to mind, but they're always those really sticky, icky ones.
True.
There's probably three that come to mind. One, I was on my own and I had a working train accident, train crash, and a house fire at the same time by myself, and I was pretty new. So that was interesting. That
Oh,
was a
wow.
lot of fun. Um, the other one, I remember a little boy was supposed to be watching his sister, and he wanted to go play with his friends. So he ran into his mom, who was sleeping, and said, "I'm going to go play." And his mom didn't wake up. He went off to play. And when he got back, his little sister wasn't breathing. And she had a trach. So in those days, we didn't have a mouth to trach protocol.
Mhm.
there was really nothing I could do to help him. And I just remember him sobbing. He was probably like 7 years old and he felt responsible for what had happened. So not only did I have the patient, but I had the caller, that just ripped my heart out. And I think that one will stay with me forever. And then I had what turned out to be a suicide by cop. And I could hear the man loading his gun. I could hear the officers arriving. I knew what I was sending the officers into, which was really hard to do. I could hear the phone line was open through the entire incident. And I could hear the shots fired and everything like that. So that one stays with me too.
Oh, geez. It's hard to explain sometimes to folks how some of these stick with us. I mean, there are people out there who will say, "You weren't out on the scene, you didn't see this, so you can't be impacted by it," or whichever. And I always say to people, listening is just as bad, if not worse sometimes, because you at least got your closure, and we are just listening, piecing together this puzzle that is sometimes worse than what is out there. And sometimes it's spot on, right? And those noises stick with you because there might be days where you're just, let's just say you're shopping or something, and you hear a familiar sound from one of those calls, and it almost takes you right back to that moment.
Yeah, right. And with you saying we're not on scene and that can be harder, it's kind of like being a passenger in a car. You can't really affect you can affect what's happening, but you're not there dealing with it tangibly.
Right. Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't sound like I'm saying we don't make a difference as a dispatcher.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I
No,
think we
it's
make a huge impact. So I
yes.
hope that didn't come across that way.
No, 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 not at all. That's something that people need to understand as well, is that, just the way you put it, I mean, it all makes sense. We definitely make an impact. I think for us sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, is we just some of us are lucky enough throughout our careers, and maybe even after a little bit, that some of those things do come full circle, and we realize that impact. But when you're in the thick of it, you're just going and going and going and going. And I think more so it's that hope that what we're doing is impacting folks because we don't see it. But sometimes it does come full circle.
Yeah, and even if we don't see it coming around, I think it's important for us to remember that we are impacting lives. I mean, we're the calm voice, we're in the midst of chaos or whatever, and we're providing sometimes those life saving instructions. Something as simple as opening up an airway, could mean the difference between life and death. And doing all of those kinds of things, I don't think that the role of a dispatcher should be diminished at all in any way.
Right. Yeah. No, ever. Um,
Right.
there's so much that goes into it. And whenever I've spoken to folks who, some of them, especially after explaining, the beyond part of it, that this just not we're not just answering the phone. Some of those folks have said, "Wow, like, I thought that's all you did was answer the phone and send somebody out. I didn't realize the everything else behind it. The fact that those voices stick with you, that how it impacts you during that time, that you don't actually get a moment sometimes to decompress, or it actually comes home with you when you say that it doesn't come home with you, but it's there. It sticks with you. Yeah.
Or you're just dealing with a choking baby and the next call's a barking dog.
Right.
You still have to be present and treat it like it's the most important thing that's happened that day.
Right. Yeah, because this person who's calling in, that's their version of an emergency. And like you were saying, that the fact that people shouldn't diminish what we do, we should never diminish anybody else's call, because it could be that barking dog that ends up turning into some sort of domestic, or shooting or something else. Maybe that's why the dog was barking, because something else is going on. And it's crazy to think that, but this is 911. Anything can happen in 911. We don't know what that call is that's coming in, and I'm sure you have taken some just like I have, where one call that I can think of specifically, it was a disorderly person, but in the end turned out to be a suicidal subject. And that fast it can turn, and the
Hmm.
response is completely different. So 911 is its own, it's a pretty interesting beast in itself.
Right.
It's hard to explain to people sometimes, but, thank you very much for sharing those calls and everything. Now you had spent, all that time, in dispatch, and everything that you were doing, you really fell in love with it. It got into your blood. Now, did you end up promoting up to, let's say, like a certified training officer, a CTO, or supervisor, or did you go straight to managing a center?
Actually, boy, I can't even remember, but there wasn't a lot of separation of roles
Mhm.
at that time. It was, again, a smaller center, not as small as the first one I started with,
Mhm.
but I think I just went straight from dispatching to communication center manager.
Oh, man, look at that. Very nice. No, that is awesome. What was, well, actually, let me ask you this first before we get to this, basically, like, the reason, that you ended up, promoting up. What I wanted to ask is, with some of these earlier calls, some of these calls that really stuck with you, was there any type of debriefing, peer support, self-care? Was there anything talked about during that time?
Yes, I specifically remember for the officer involved shooting, the suicide by cop. I
Mhm.
remember being part of that critical incident stress debriefing. And actually, I was on the state's critical incident stress debriefing team for a long time too. So I would get to go out and do those with other agencies. And it just felt so good in that instant to be included, to understand what the officers were going through, for them to understand how hard it was for me to send them on that call, and how it affected me. And it was a really good experience to just talk it all out together.
Do you feel like for them, it kind of filled that gap of anything that they might not have known, and but also that they appreciated the fact that you were there? And the reason I asked too is because there's still, even now, a lot of dispatch centers where their 911 professionals are left out of those debriefings. And I remember the first debriefing that I went to with my team. I will never forget one of the fire chiefs. He goes, "Why haven't you been here before?" And we're just kind of looking at him like, "Huh?" And he goes, we're like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Why have you not been a part of these debriefings? Like, this is important." He goes, "We need to have you guys here to understand that, because you just filled in gaps that we would have never known had you not been here. So why haven't you been here?" And we're like, "I don't know." We've always been kind of left out. So for you during those times, for the other field responders, do you feel like it really, I guess, kind of enhanced everything for them as well?
Yes, for sure. Um, and it really solidified the kind of the bond between dispatch and field. It helped a lot, but I'm so impressed with was it the fire chief that said that to you?
Yeah, it was one of the
That,
fire chiefs who said it.
yeah, that's great for him to recognize the need and to bring that forward. That's awesome.
Now, when you ended up moving up and all, what was your reason? 'Cause the reason I asked too is, so just like for example, a lot of people that I've spoken to when they have moved up to be a CTO or certified training officer, there's one of two reasons. One, they had like crap training and crap trainers, and it inspired them in that sense, so that they could be in that position now, basically revamp it or add themselves to it and their experience so that those who were coming in, that literal next generation of 911, they wouldn't have to experience what that person went through. Or it was they had amazing training, amazing trainers, and they were so inspired by that as well, is they wanted to continue that cycle of, I guess just greatness in a sense for those who are coming in. They can mold them that way and just continue that good cycle of, role models in training and such.
I don't see this being linked to anything like that. I wish I could say it was
Mhm.
something really altruistic like that. I think this was just me being kind of a go getter and wanting to do the next thing and push myself and challenge myself. And I really did feel like I could make a difference.
Mhm.
I did promote above some of the people that actually trained me. So that was difficult. Um, but we worked through it. And um, yeah, I think it really was just kind of pushing and challenging myself.
Did you find that, once you did promote over some of those folks that, um because as you said, it was difficult, and I remember when I finally promoted to supervisor because I had a lot of friends that I worked with, they would tell me, "You need to go. You need to be the one to do it because 'cause you'd be really great at it," this and that, and then when I did, then I got to that point where now it's, "Okay, I'm in a supervisory role. We're friends, but there's a line," right?
Mhm.
And this wasn't a thing at the time, and maybe you've seen it online, but, like, when someone promotes over, they'll or with if they leave a shift or whichever, they'll make, like, one of those cakes that says, "You're dead to us now." Which I think is
Right?
hilarious. Some people think it's mean. I think it's hilarious. Like, I would want someone to do that with me. I think that would be one of the most funniest things, but did you find that when you ended up promoting that now, you definitely have a line drawn and things are now a lot different than what they were, even the few days prior to you actually officially moving up?
Yeah, for sure. You just still remain friendly, but you have a job to do and you need to treat everyone fairly. Um, and that's what I tried to do. And I mean, it's hard, but I think it worked out okay in the end, as we established that trust in each other.
What were I guess what were some of the incidents that you look back on, even as a manager and everything, that you're really proud of with the not just this, the center, but I guess the different teams, the people that were working there. What are some of those things that were not only stuff that you were proud of, but I guess really rewarding?
I'm glad you asked that. So we took on the task of becoming an accredited center of excellence
Mhm.
with the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch. And I made a bunch of mistakes. I did some good things, but as a team, we all came together and were able to recognize that goal and become an accredited center of excellence. So I think that showed a lot of um, work and effort on the part of our team. And it also showed a lot of commitment to the community and to the type of care we were willing to provide for them. So it just all in all was, I mean, it was a rough road, but once we got there, it was fantastic. And I don't mean to sound like once we got accredited, we just took a break and everything was, back to the way it was. But um, We truly strived or strove. I don't know what word, but we truly tried. How about we
Yes.
say tried?
Yes, there you go.
To keep that customer service and the quality and the attention to that higher standard of care going forward.
Yeah, see, and I was gonna ask too, for those who are watching and listening who are not really sure what, that, I guess to get that, what exactly do you need to do? Because I think, I mean, it's a pretty big process, right? Like, there's a lot of different things. Don't you have to renew it, every so often as well? How does that work exactly?
So, in the beginning, there are 20 points of excellence that you need to meet each one.
Mhm.
Some of it deals with compliance to protocols, some with policies and procedures, some with meeting structures and what's being discussed in your meetings, how you interact with field and how they can get field feedback back to the dispatchers, all kinds of things. That kind of just is a whole encompassing accreditation. And then you have someone come out and review your site and review your application and all your documentation. And then, like you said, there is a period for re-accreditation. And can't remember if that's 2 years or 3 years, but it's basically redocumenting everything that you've done and showing how you've kept up to that higher level and standard of care.
Awesome. Now, so that was for the center, but what about you as an
Mhm.
individual throughout your time in dispatch? Not just being a manager, but being there on the front line and such. What were some of those rewarding moments for yourself?
It's funny, one sticks out. I had a gal that was kind of hard to deal with. I loved her dearly, but people would have a problem with her attitude sometimes and those kinds of things.
Mhm.
So I had to meet with her and put her on a personal improvement plan kind of thing and work through it together. And she came back once we'd completed that process and um, seen improvement. She came back and said how much she respected me for that, and that it went really well. And so for me to have someone that had been, I mean, reprimanded is kind of a hard word, strong word, but to feel that respect from me, that I respected her as a person and I expected more from her, was incredibly rewarding.
I think those are some of the best moments when when you have those difficult conversations, because a lot of people, they
Mhm.
don't want to, and then things get away, and an incident might repeat, or I don't know, so something else might happen. But when you have enough respect and listen to understand versus listening to simply respond, you end up building that trust, right? That
Mhm.
connection gets a little deeper with your folks, whoever it might be, whether you're in a supervisor position, center manager position, or frontline position. You build that and you're able to really come together and learn from each other. I would rather have someone be straight up with me and tell me something to my face than dilly dally or beat around the bush, and then I'm wondering, because I want to know, no matter how much it might hurt me or whichever, I want to know so that I can improve. How else are you going to do it? So that's awesome that
Yeah,
respect was there.
you just described me to a T. Just tell me to my face. Let me work on it. Let me try to improve. Um, don't sugarcoat the issue or talk to everybody but me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Because then what are we doing here? Like,
Right.
I say it all the time with a lot of people, and especially in some of the classes that I teach, that we are amazing at communications. But when it comes to communicating with each other, it's not always there.
Right. Right. And
What
it's
do you
difficult. Like you said, it's hard to have those critical conversations, but
Right.
it's so worth it.
Yeah, exactly. It ends up being worth it in the end. And some of those folks will take whatever it was that they learned during that time and inspire them, to move up, or when they're talking to others who are new, they can share that story as well and just simply say, you're not alone. I was there as well, and this is what happened to me, and let's have you learn from my situation, whatever the situation may be, and that alone ends up building even more trust with everybody else who's coming in, and now you're bridging that gap between seasoned dispatchers and new dispatchers, or even seasoned and seasoned, and that's the way it works.
Right. And I think it all rests with leadership. And if you want to play whack a mole, and beat them over the head for everything they do wrong or look for what they're doing wrong.
Right.
But I think if you're looking for those good things, you're going to get more good things, get more good behavior. And then you're going to find things that creep up that you need to deal with. And as long as you deal with them, then move on to looking for the good.
Exactly. Yes. Um, before we transition over, I've got another question. So, how do you feel like the profession changed you? How do you feel like 911 changed you?
Um, like in some of my answers before, I wish it was all good.
Hmm.
I think one of the things I learned to do was to deal with it and dump it. So it was just gone.
Yeah.
You're there in the moment, and then you just dump it onto the next thing. And I think that's transitioned in a way. Maybe it's just my memory's failing me at this old age or whatever, but I can watch a movie and not remember a thing about it. I can read a book and not remember anything about it. And I don't know if it's, my brain's ability to just process it, deal with it, and it's gone. Um, One of the other things is just a profound appreciation and admiration for every aspect of public safety and for the things that public safety personnel are doing day in and day out, not getting a lot of praise from the public. In many instances, it's the exact opposite. But to continue to do that day after day, I see you and I appreciate you.
I feel that. There's so much that that comes out of this profession, so much that you end up learning, and some stuff that ends up sticking with you. And for me, for example, this July, in just a couple months, will be my 10 years of being out of dispatch, and it's oof. There are some things that still stick with me. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, no, it'll be 11 years. Holy cow. So I already missed a year. It'll it'll be 11 years since I've been out. But it's that dispatch year. The dispatch year sticks with me, where I hear
Mhm.
everything around me. And sometimes it's hilarious, and other times I'm just thinking, I don't want to hear that right now. Like, that's not what I want to hear.
Yeah,
But
sometimes I have to focus on not hearing a conversation at another table or
right.
whatever. Like, no, I'm just going to be here.
Yes, exactly. Or, with my kids, one example that I can think of right off the bat is my youngest, who is 7. She'll actually be 8 here in about 3 weeks or so. She had been running around, and we were gonna do like a dinner in the movie, in the living room, and she pranced off to go get a fork, and I was like, "You need to make sure that you walk back with that fork."
Oh,
And then she goes, okay." And, like, the older kids, they know, because there are certain because it's I took a call like that, where there was a kid who was running around and had a fork, and he fell. And, you can just imagine, like, the kid ended up being okay, and everything was ultimately fine. The kid was fine, but, I mean, he ended up stabbing himself in the upper roof of his mouth. And that has yes, that stuck with me. So, seeing my younger daughter playing around at first and then, prancing off to get a fork, I'm like, "No, like, you have got to walk back, please," because of some of those calls. So for me, and for example of myself, that's how it's changed me a bit, for over the years. But also the other thing was it helped me also really, really appreciate life and living in the moment. Because as you
Mhm.
know, in 911, you quickly understand how short life can be.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a great perspective, and I'm glad you shared that.
I mean, it's what we all end up learning, and
Right.
it's a hard thing to take in sometimes, but I mean, it's there, and so you end up going actually and working for the IAD for about 17 years. Now, quickly, kind of a brief overview, like what were you doing with the IAD? That sounds almost menacing. Like, what were you doing? Like I'm interrogating you,
What'd you do?
right? How
I saw
dare you?
you.
I know. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, I absolutely loved my time at the academies.
Mhm.
I worked mainly on accreditation. I also worked with trying to get legislation in the states. Um, I remember saying one time that, in the state you had to be licensed to cut hair, but you didn't have to be licensed or certified to give instructions over the phone, for childbirth or whatever the case may be. And
Right.
I got called out on that because someone thought that I was being disparaging towards hairdressers or something like that. And I didn't mean that at all. Because I think it is important that they're certified too, but I just was
Right.
using that as an example. So, um,
My mom is a hairdresser actually and has been cutting hair since I was very, very, very young, and I don't think she would have ever taken any offense to that. She would
oh,
have been
good.
like, "No, you're right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff because we work with chemicals as well, and
Yeah,
unless you want your hair burned off, we have to know how to do this and be certified."
right. 100%. And
Yes.
just, I mean, just like, EMTs and paramedics are certified at the
Mhm.
state level, just, I really tried hard to get the word out that that needed to happen. And I think we were successful in some states. Most people didn't realize that that wasn't just in place all over, it's just an assumption. So, um, but getting to meet so many people through the academies, getting to go to so many incredible places and see so many agencies, so many people, different cultures, and dealing with the protocol where you really have a chance to impact lives, not only as an individual, but worldwide. It was a very rewarding and amazing opportunity for me.
It's that continuation of service
Hmm.
and still doing it in a different way, but still having that deep impact of everything that you're doing as well. I love that. Now, as I can't believe we're already going to be going on an hour. This is crazy. It doesn't even feel like it. I could talk to you all day. Um, looking at your history and everything, I want to segue now into what you're currently doing. You work with FirstWatch. So for those who are watching, listening, and again, it's been awesome to have you on here and learn more about you and hear your stories and everything. But what is or who is rather FirstWatch, and what is the part that you play?
Okay, so FirstWatch is very complex. So when I get asked, what is FirstWatch? What we do at FirstWatch basically is we work with public safety agencies to help them manage their data through software. And so we take what's important to you. It might come from a phone data source, from CAD, RMS, EPCR, wherever it's coming from, and we mash it up in the background. and then feed it back out to you in a way that's easy to understand. So you know basically what's happening as it's happening. We can send out alerts. In fact, as we were talking about the critical incident stress incidents earlier, I was thinking about, we call it a trigger. A trigger is basically what you want to monitor.
Mhm.
And we have peer support triggers or critical incident stress or, whatever you want to call it. But what it does is it alerts supervisors or the peer support team or whoever you want it to alert when an individual has taken a certain type of call or a cumulative bunch of a certain type of call, so that you can check in on them and make sure they're doing okay. It's amazing the things you can do with data, and to make data-driven decisions rather than just off the top of your head, when it's easy to see, easy to understand, and to really make changes based on that data. It's so fun. I just love it.
Wow. Okay, so let me see if I can understand, or if you can explain to me so I can understand how this works. So, with FirstWatch, is this an app, or is this something that it's software that's built into your computer, like your CAD system, computer aided dispatch, or how does it work exactly? I mean, I know there's only so much you can say, but I just mean as you're talking about tracking certain things. So let's say I'm sitting at my console right now. I've taken, you know, 2 suicide calls back to back and a CPR call. These are 3 pretty tough types of calls, but, management or my supervisor, well, maybe the supervisor knows, right? But management doesn't know. And I, maybe need, a break or, some sort of, these are all flags, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see or to say
Exactly.
that I might need some sort of support. So how would this work with First Watch coming in on this?
So I'm not techie at all. So I'm going to give you the FirstWatch for Dummies version of that, I guess.
Hey, that's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Yes. Very high level. That's what I'm
Right.
talking about. Yes.
But it is a software system. So what
Mhm,
we do is we interface with your CAD. We take a read-only file, export that into FirstWatch, and export whatever other. Well, we don't really export. We just go in and grab it and
mhm,
take it. Um, we're not usually doing anything on a live environment. We do it on a replicated server. And then that's where we take those things and really get to know you and your agency and find out what's important to you. What are you struggling with? What keeps you up at night? What do you already do that you wish you could automate? And that's what we do in the background to provide it to you. So it's super easy. That's the favorite part of my job, is making people's jobs easier, because we can do what the computer can do and then save the rest for what a human needs to do.
Oh, that is
Did that
perfect.
answer your question?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
you're literally taking all of that rich data that's coming in from every single one of those calls. And also whether it be, if it's, looking at different points in the narrative even, what you're
Mhm.
typing in all of that, there's probably a way to, um really hone in on some of those target keywords, right? Like
Right.
like something, like, stress management, or, anything that somebody would say during a high priority call, that now you're putting all that data in this casserole almost, and bringing out, whatever might be needed for that support. That is pretty awesome. I like that.
Yeah, and you said it better than I did. We need to box you up and take you around.
Right.
Nicely done.
Hey, I thank you. I was just going off of what you were saying, I was just kind of putting it together that way, and that sounds pretty awesome, man. I've got a friend, I believe, I don't know if he's still working there or not, but Ryan Dedman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've known him for years. So,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
I believe he was working there as well. And so yeah, just all of it sounds pretty awesome.
Yes. And like you mentioned, we can do free text. searches. So if you want to be alerted anytime
Wow.
gun comes up, I mean, that would be crazy because that would
Right.
probably happen too frequently. But
Right, yes. Yeah, but I mean, if, you're looking through the data and everything, if that's something, even that I can see just off the top of my head, if county administrators were saying, "How many weapons types calls, we've been taking?" We're like, "Well, I've got a report for you." Like, I
exactly.
can actually show you, and you're now have all of this data, and the thing that I love about it as well, but also makes me slightly jealous because I don't get to use, this awesome stuff that's out there now in 911. But when I was in dispatch, I remember, and you probably remember this. We had one of those big dot matrix printers. So when we would print out our calls at the end of the month, they would just ring, 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 and then
Oh, wow.
you pull the paper off, and it's just numbers. But now with the way everything is out there now, this technology that's out there now, you are more so able to visualize that
Mhm.
data and see everything that's going on, and really make it more, I guess, just cumbersome in, the way it's produced, the way it's put out there, and the way to visualize it. I'm a nerd, I guess. I'm a 911 nerd. I love stuff like that because it was kind of boring before just seeing the numbers, but now there's a lot more that can be done, and comparisons, and the support that you can get out of it just from numbers.
Right, and it's completely based on you and what you need to see, what you want automated, what's important to you.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Now, for anyone who might have any questions about First Watch, or maybe even, I don't know how, if you work with people specifically at all, or if they can be directed somewhere, but website, email, anything like that, how can people find more information about First Watch?
Yeah, I would recommend that you go to our website. It's firstwatch.net.
Hmm.
Um, and that can kind of give you an overview of the products. We can hook you up with a demo. We love to do WebEx demos and kind of give you an idea of what the potential is. And like I said, everything's customizable to what is important to you, what you need to see, what would help make your job easier.
Perfect. Very
Mhm.
awesome. Now, I have one last question for you
Okay.
as we're going into the wrap up of this, and this is not a question that I had sent you either. So don't be nervous. I know, right? No, this is it's an easy question. And I want to really kind of hone in on, or focus, on the dispatch part of this. So you had 11 years in dispatch, but also, you had your time as a center manager as well. With all of the knowledge that you have now, okay? With all the knowledge that you have now, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your dispatch journey, public safety rather, but mostly kind of focusing on dispatch there, what advice would you give yourself? And it's not to change anything, right? Because I feel like a lot of us went through what we went through to become who we are today. And without that, like, I embrace that type of struggle, and without that struggle or failure, we would never learn. So if you could go back in time with all the knowledge that you have now to talk to yourself in the beginning, what would you say to yourself?
I would say that you make a difference, that we don't always save lives, but we impact lives. And um, hmm, that's a good question to reflect on. That it's okay to talk about things when it gets rough. You're not alone, and just keep swimming toward the bubbles, and giving up's not an option.
I love that. Thank you. That was
Yeah.
excellent. Very well put. And this has been a lot of fun having you on today.
Oh, Ricardo, I've appreciated it so much. It has
This
been a
is
riot.
Yes, this has been so good, and I can't wait to hear more about things that are going on at FirstWatch. Seeing you at the next conference, wherever we might see each other and stuff. But just learning more about you, this has just been a lot of fun, and thank you for what you do for our profession. Thank you.
And thank you for getting the word out to everyone. And I just want to say thank you to everybody watching. I mean, you spent a large chunk of your day with us, and that means a lot to me. I respect your time, and if I can ever help you in any way, I hope that you'll reach out.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I'll be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media. You can send us an email. The easiest way to do that is to simply go to the link that is there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And of course, if you're listening to the audio, I'm about to say it right now. And that is links.co/WTT podcast. And that's links with 2 I's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there. That's my bio page, email, all of my social media, where to listen to the latest episode, where to buy Imagine Listening, the book, where to pre-order book number 2 that launches August 4th, 2024. And if you want to become a subscriber and supporter for bonus content, there's some buttons on there as well. And if you're looking for any podcast or dispatching merchandise, scroll all the way down to the bottom, which really isn't that far. It's like 3 thumb swipes, I think. And it's down at the bottom. It'll take you to the store, and you'll find all kinds of merchandise there. And I appreciate all of you very, very much. This broadcast has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services. And shout out, as always, to those subscribers, but all of you who are here watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. I appreciate it more than you know. This can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.
You just listened to a Code 7 Network podcast. If you have any questions or would like to be a guest on the show, send an email to wttpodcast@gmail.com.